Mr. Ambassador, sir, thank you very much for this interview. It's a great honor. I would like to start with the Greek-Israeli relations, and I would like your comment on the flourishing that we see in the late years.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. We definitely see a steady improvement and intensification of the relationship between the two countries. Much has been said about the close relationship, the alliance, but I think this is now beyond words, and we see facts, we see results. The relationship have been upgraded 31 years ago. We should credit former Prime Minister Konstantinos Mitsotakis for that. But in recent years, under different governments in Greece and different governments in Israel, we see a very clear process of building a strategic alliance, strategic cooperation between the two countries. And this is not just about defense cooperation. This is going to political issues, this is going to regional issues, and there is a growing understanding that the national interest or the national security of both countries is better served through cooperation. We have a new government in Israel, and last Tuesday, Prime Minister Mitsotakis and Prime Minister Bennett had their first phone conversation. It was a very good conversation, very warm, very friendly, and there is a certain commitment on both sides to continue the good relationship.
Are there prospects of wider cooperation between the two countries? In the late years, we see many Israeli companies coming to Greece and investing in Greece, especially in real estate. Are there also other fields where we could work together, like science, like
We talk a lot about tourism, and one should understand that beyond the big numbers of Israeli tourists in good days and certainly in difficult days, we still see potential in this through marketing of joint tourism packages to the region. There is an investment in hotels, even here in, in Athens, in Saloniki. Israeli chains are active. I spent a few days in Kavala. I heard Hebrew around me. I got to this hotel, this beautiful hotel in the center of Saloniki, and I don't know if it's 50 or more % of the clientele are Israelis. So there is a potential here. But beyond this, we have improving relationship on defense procurement. This is not just buying Israeli technologies, it's about bringing the technologies and the production to Greece. There is now a beginning of a defense industry with stronger cooperation with Israel, with Israeli companies. So this is one major aspect. Other major aspect is investment in energy. Recently, an Israeli company won a tender, a massive tender for developing solar panels farms in Greece. Beyond that, we have scientific cooperation. Even here in the Saloniki Aristotle University, they have cooperation with Israeli researchers. We need to do more on this aspect. Where I see the potential in the future is agriculture and agrotech, and high-tech through science and research and development. There is a potential here, and I'd like to see the matching of Israeli scientists, Israeli engineers with their Greek counterparts. We have some beginning here in introducing Israeli technologies on smart cities. The sky is the limit is an understatement.
Are you also discussing about investments in Thessaloniki in these fields of science and in the fields of new technology?
On the field of science, Aristotle University is one of the leading institutes in the country, and they cooperate with Israeli university. We need to see more on this aspect. The rest, I leave it to the private sector. As government, we help, we facilitate. We help when there are certain bureaucratic challenges, but at the end, it's a business-to-business cooperation. The role of the government is on the sidelines to facilitate. They decide where to invest. If I can bring them here, I will be more than happy.
So Israel signed the so-called Abraham Accords with countries like the United Arab Emirates and the Bahrain, and Greece is also developing very good relations with these states like the Emirates, and recently there was the Philia Forum held. Is there a room for wider cooperation between Greece and Israel with countries in the Middle East?
Definitely yes. We have the trilateral cooperation, which includes Greece, Cyprus, and Israel. Greece and Cyprus, Greece on its own have trilateral with other countries. The vision that we are trying to promote in cooperation with your government is that Greece is a center between the Middle East and Europe, between Asia, Africa, and Europe, a bridge between culture, religions, and continents. And this bridge, and through your good relationship with neighboring countries, we can create a new atmosphere, a new reality of cooperation on things which are defined as soft power: environment, health, transportation, coastal infrastructure, and other aspects. There is a room here. The United Arab Emirates, the Gulf in general, is crucial and important player in building cooperation, in building close opportunities for investment in different fields. Israel has a very good relationship with the United Arab Emirates and with Bahrain. The Israeli foreign minister, the new foreign minister, just paid his first official visit anywhere to United Arab Emirates. There is a potential here, and Greece is a partner in this cooperation. And not only with the United Arab Emirates, with others, we can create an environment of stability, an environment of cooperation through those partnerships. And you would see that many countries are willing. And to answer your question in one word, yes, there is a potential, and I think that the United Arab Emirates can be close partner to your country as well as to Israel.
What about Recep Tayyip Erdogan's Turkey? Where does Turkey stand in all this relationship, and how is the relationship right now between Israel and Turkey?
There is no change in the relationship between Israel and Turkey. We had witnessed recently, during the recent spate of violence between Israel and Gaza, when Israel was subject to thousands and thousands, 5,000 rockets and missiles coming from Gaza, we had seen the rhetoric coming from Turkey. Turkey is an important country in world affairs. Turkey is definitely an important country in the region and in the East Mediterranean. We have an interest in having good relationship with Turkey, but we are not going to legitimize or tolerate a certain rhetoric which is inflammatory, which is not helping in stabilize the region, but plays a destabilizing role. If Turkey decides to be a willing partner, I think that Israel, I'm not speaking on behalf of Greece, it's not my portfolio, but I think that Greece as well would love to welcome Turkey as a constructive partner. Are they willing to be such partners? I think that they need to prove their good intentions.
Mm-hmm. Are you at all concerned that there might be some more tension in the area, in the Middle East or in the Southeast Mediterranean, with Israel being involved in a war condition, like smaller or bigger one? What do you think?
Past practices or history teaches us that every few years there is another cycle of violence. This is not Israel's choice. This is not even Israel's wish. But when we are called to defend ourselves, we will be ready. We would like to live with the Palestinians, Gaza and the West Bank in peace. Israel presidents visited the United States this week, and the message was very clear. We call on the Palestinians to come back to the negotiating table. The Israeli foreign minister, when he was in the United Arab Emirates in Dubai and Abu Dhabi this week, made a very clear statement. If the Palestinians would like to reach an agreement, they would find Israel willing. If they decide to continue with violence, they would find us ready. the last cycle of violence was imposed on the Palestinians and on Israel by Hamas. It was an interest of Hamas. Hamas, whenever they find themselves cornered, whenever they find themselves losing politically, domestically, they react through violence. Israel would not be subject to terror or being terrorized. Your question is whether we will see another wave of violence. It depends on them. If they choose to invest their energies in building good quality life for their own people, they would not be firing rockets at us. Mm-hmm. They would not be using the international aid they get from Arab countries and European countries and others to attack Israel. They would invest it in building schools, hospitals, better housing. But their interest is very different. Until they change their priorities, we need to be ready. Mm-hmm. And the world, our viewers here in Saloniki, need to understand that this is not something we choose. We are called to defend ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And Israel will continue with this firm policy like you described with the new government as well?
We have no alternative. Mm-hmm. We don't have too many options. It's not our choice, as I told you before. But if someone attacks you, what are you supposed to do? Accept it, say it's nothing, it's just April, May rain, where we hardly have rain in the winter, so we get it in the summer. Countries have responsibilities. One of the responsibilities is defending its population, defending its territory. When someone is digging tunnels under your border to get to your communities and to kill people, what are you supposed to do? Say, oh, this is excavation? This is not excavation.
What about anti-Semitism? Are you concerned about anti-Semitism in the West?
Yes. I think that we should all be concerned. You are celebrating this year your 200 years anniversary since your War of Independence, 1821. You're also president of this International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, IRA. And I think it's symbolic that Greece, on its 200th anniversary, took upon itself to lead the fight against anti-Semitism. We have seen the reactions, we have heard the voices, and part of it is now going on in social media. There are alternative channels of communication and media these days. The social media is leading, and what's going on there is unspeakable or despicable. It's terrible. And it's not on the verge of anti-Semitism. It is anti-Semitism. It has all the elements of anti-Semitism. And we cannot give up on this fight or this combat or effort or campaign against anti-Semitism. It goes through leadership, which has to be very clear. It goes through religious leaders who have to speak up. And it goes through the media, which should monitor and censor certain language. And it goes through people of influence. I belong to a generation which is not familiar with all those terms, bloggers, influencers. There are people who are now considered influencers. This is a new profession, the profession of the influencers. People need to understand that others follow them. So if you're a football player or a model, and you have 60 million, 20 million, 2,000, 3,000 followers, you have responsibility. You may differ politically with my point of view. You are not, I don't expect anyone or everyone to accept my point of view. I'd like to be listened. I'd like you to hear what I have to say. But when it comes to judging, be careful with the language people are using.
Absolutely. So let's move to the let's say, Israeli-Thessaloniki relations we are building here. There have been developments in the building of the Holocaust Museum,
Yes.
and this is going to be a landscape for Thessaloniki, and there's high expectations about that, and also about what you mentioned about people being aware of what a Holocaust is and what anti-Semitism is, and what hatred is. So what will this landscape, what will this Holocaust Museum mean, not only for Thessaloniki, but also for what it symbolizes?
I would like to commend the leadership of Prime Minister Mitsotakis and Vice President of the government Pikrimenos and Mayor Zerva, and the commitment of his predecessor, and the leadership of the Jewish community of Greece, President Shaltiel of Saloniki, and others in not giving up on the effort. Much progress has been achieved in recent months in facilitating the project and in making sure that it can come into reality. It's not just a sketch on the board, but it's a plan with a place and with a vision. This museum is not just about the Holocaust. This museum is about hundreds of years of Jewish history in Thessaloniki, and the role Jews played in the life of Saloniki, which was a center of Jewish life, spiritual center of Jewish life. It is a memorial to a sad chapter in humanity, the Holocaust. But it's also a memorial to a community, creative community, productive community, the coexistence between Jews and Muslims and Greek Orthodox living in this part of the country. This place should be a method or an instrument of education. People should know the past. People should learn values. This museum can be a torch, a lighthouse to the many to see how they should be, what values they should promote, where they should take their communities. So I see a great potential in this. And I hope that it will be a center of learning, not just about Jewish history, about values, about human values, how we should behave the other, minorities, ethnic, gender, anything, sexual orientation. It should teach tolerance. And the other thing is the bond between Saloniki and Israel. I'd like to see in this museum a reference to the contribution Saloniki Jewish community played in building the state of Israel. Do you know that the first workers in Israeli ports came from Saloniki? Do you know that the founding fathers of Israel, Ben Gurion and Ben Zvi, saw in Saloniki a model for life? They were here, they were educated here. Beyond that, Israeli modern economy is very much the result of two Saloniki Jewish families investing in the building of Israeli economy. Ships, banking, real estate, commerce. It's the Rekanatis and the Karasos. So if we can have the museum as a center of a crossroad for cooperation, you have achieved the goal, in my opinion.
Is there a current bond we can build again between Thessaloniki and Israel? We are sister cities with Tel Aviv, if I'm not mistaken. Is there any way we can develop this bond through cultural events, through exchange of students, for example?
We have ongoing Israeli influx of tourism to Saloniki. Saloniki is very popular. So we have this happening. I'd like to see more Greek people going to Israel. The numbers are on this side more than on that side. I'm not expecting it to be even, but I'd like to see more Greeks exploring Israel. We have lots of Greek culture consumed in Israel. You cannot even imagine how rich is Greek cultural life, musical life is in Israel. All the big names perform in Israel. I would hope that you will be more exposed to Israeli culture. It's not happening yet. And the other field is exchange of students that I would like to see more, and scientific cooperation, as we discussed earlier.
So this has been a really productive conversation, like a very useful one. I would like to thank you about it one more time, Mr. Ambassador, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a great pleasure, and I hope that we will see the museum coming to reality soon, and that the relationship between the two countries will continue to strengthen on a daily basis. Thank you very much.
you.